Hey everyone, this is Will Kern from Endless Events. Welcome again to another episode of Event Icons. Today we are talking about the Global Event Forum. And if you're wondering, what is the Global Event Forum? Well, this show, we're going to definitely dive into what exactly it is, but I was lucky enough to get to participate into it and consider this like all the powerful minds in the events industry trying to figure out a way to change all the things going on in the events industry. There you go. That's my 1 sentence explanation. So if you want to find out more, stay tuned after the intro, but let's kick that music.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #EventIcons.
Presented by Endless Events.
The show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Use the question panel on the webinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter. Submit your questions with #EventIcons.
We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show.
Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook.
Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com.
Now, without any further delay, this is #EventIcons.
Hey everyone, as I said, welcome to Event Icons, and today we're talking about the Global Event Forum, which happened this past year at ILEA Live. Not ILEA Live, oh my gosh. Yes, ILEA Live, correct? Am I crazy? I'm losing my mind. I don't even remember what conference we were at. That's how crazy it was. But I got lucky enough to be invited to the Global Event Forum, and I honestly had no idea what to expect, other than the fact that I was hanging out with some of the most gigantic players in the events industry, and they were talking about some pretty spectacular things. And luckily we invited them all to be a part of the show this week, so you're going to get to talk to them and ask questions during the entire show as well. So I'm Will Kern. If you haven't met me before, you should probably watch a couple of episodes of Event Icons. I'm joined also by Lindsay. Lindsay, want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lindsay, the newest host here over at Event Icons, and I'm listening in because I'm addicted to the report and like the findings that come out of the forums that you guys have. And so to be able to come and participate and learn from you all together and maybe ask some questions is super exciting.
And we're also joined by the illustrious Brent Kruger. Brent.
All right. Yeah, it's good to be here, Will, and it is my honor to introduce our guests of the day. So, first up, we have Kevin White with decades of experience telling organizations stories through the design and production of live events, an entrepreneurial approach to innovative systems and thinking, moving the needle with audiences on what they think, feel, know, and do. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you for having me.
And for those who don't know, if you want to hear Kevin's full story, go check out episode 26. That's a throwback right there for Kevin's first episode on the show.
Throwback Wednesday.
Next up, we have Keri Miller as creative strategist. Keri's expertise lies in her ability to dig deep into you, your brand, your culture, and your objectives to deliver your message. And my screen totally just went blank in the middle of the intro, so I got to get back to that tab because for some reason Google Inbox doesn't like me. All right. Her keen ability to inspire guests through human interaction combined with an intuitive sense of future trends. I think Inbox knows that its head is on the chopping block with Gmail, so it's acting up. Interaction combined with intuitive sense of future trends and technologies has helped her and the team produce multiple award-winning events, 43 to be exact. Her involvement with the International Live Events Association, aka ILEA, both locally and internationally, and participating and speaking at international conferences provide continuous inspiration as well as a great excuse to dust off the trusty backpack. Keri, so sorry for the botched intro. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, next up, I told you, this is a jam-packed episode because we also have, in addition to Keri and Kevin, we've got Sara Grauf as the Senior Vice President of Event Strategy and Services for the San Francisco Giants. Sara is responsible for business development and operational management of all non-baseball ventures for the organization. Her focus is to identify business opportunities beyond the Major League Baseball franchise that increase the visibility and use of Oracle Park, Pier 48, The Yard at Mission Rock, and other projects which leverage the organization's resources and capabilities. And former guest on episode 19 of Event Icons, it's Sara Grauf.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm glad I go further back than Kevin White even. That's dipping way back into the archives.
Well, even fun fact is that back on episode 19, you were Sarah Hunt back then. So
True, yes.
Name change.
Old.
Good to be back. Reinvented.
And joining us from the future, because it's already nighttime there, Christian Seidenstuecker. Christian is founder and CEO of Joke Event AG, one of the top agencies for live communication in Germany, specialist in staging brands, creating experiences, and inspiring people around the globe with the quote-unquote hobby of being the president of ILEA Central Europe. Thanks for joining us, Christian.
Yeah, thank you also for having me on board, even if it's 11 p.m. at night. So
we appreciate you.
Very much so. Thanks for joining us.
Well, real quick, we want to get into a little bit of your guys' background, but because there's so many awesome, amazing guests, and because there's so much to talk about, I want to keep it brief. So if we can go down the line and each of you give kind of a 1 or 2 sentence explanation as far as what got you in the events industry. And then when I get to each of you, some of the returning guests, I have a special question for you guys. So let's start off with Keri first. Keri, why don't you tell everyone a little bit what got you in the events industry and kind of like what got you to where you are today?
What got me in? I actually stumbled upon it in a calendar for university when I was trying to figure out what to do after I had my kids. Found this company, E=MC² Events, volunteered a bunch, and they hired me, and the rest is sort of history. Became a producer, creative director, chief creative strategist. I'm one of the partners, and now we are 3 offices and 30 people strong.
Wow. Crushing it. I mean, this is like powerhouse level stuff, guys. Christian, tell us a little bit what got you in the events industry.
yeah, it's funny because normally in my first life, I want to be a journalist, telling stories. And there was a youth organization for let's say hobby journalists. And they needed urgently someone for the event department, let's say, and the event committee. And so with 16, I was dedicated. I was the event manager of the youth organization for Journalists Association. So that's my start during school.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. All right. And we're also joined by 2 returners. So as you guys know, when we have somebody come back to the show, instead of asking that question, you can go back and check out episode 26 and episode 19 to catch Sara and Kevin's stories. But Kevin, welcome back to the show. Tell us a little bit about what have you been up to since episode 26. Oh my gosh.
I mean, where do you even want me to start on that? I've been up to quite a bit. But I'd like to focus on, I mean, there's so much time in between that now, but what I'd like to focus on is some of the stuff that we have in the works, because we're now, for the first time, are broaching the creating proprietary events for XPL. So we want to get into the event ownership side of things. So we are in the lab, so to speak, concocting, creating, and designing for hopefully a launch this year of some great stuff, some stuff that we believe in, some stuff that we think will move the needle, as we say. And we're going to start in the event industry with those projects. So we think we can do the most good staying in our own little neighborhood. But so be on the lookout for some really sort of cool designs for event people to attend.
Very cool. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that in, I think, 2-3 episodes. On episode 157, we have you coming back to talk about actually the larger topic that Global Event Forum had about commoditization. And I'm sure the reason why you guys are doing that is related to that same topic. So I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that then. So we'll come back to that conversation.
All right.
But I'm going to kick it over to Sara. Sara, a lot has changed, including a last name change as well, since you were on episode 19. What have you been up to? You've been also like doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, let's see. I changed my name. I had a baby. I moved. I became the president of ILEA International. And in my spare time, I tried to keep my day job going. So it's been a wild ride. First and foremost, I want on the pre-sale list for Kevin White's events. So let me know how to do that, Kevin. I want to know what you're up to.
Okay.
Yeah, and really it's just been a lot of neat, innovative things going out over here in San Francisco, and also starting to get into development world where we're actually starting to build some venues specific for multi-use events.
Awesome. And I have been the lucky experiencer of your guys' amazing venues, and they are fantastic. All right, so let's get into the meat of this. You guys all know who they are now. Now we have to talk about what the heck Global Event Forum is. And Sara, you're kind of a big proponent into why this all happened. You were sponsor of the whole shindig, basically made it all happen, and then got together some of the brightest minds in the events industry. Can you tell everyone just who doesn't have any idea what the heck Global Event Forum is, can you give like a synopsis? What is it?
Sure. So a couple years ago, actually, ILEA and our leadership team decided that we needed to be up-leveling the conversations that we're having as an industry. And I have to give huge credit to Robert Wright at Davies Tanner, who was one of our consultants at the time. And he really went above and beyond and put together this experience about getting together some of the brightest minds in the events world. The first one actually happened in Germany and Scotland. It was on the heels of IMEX, and then we had an amazing trip to Scotland. We had some interesting partners coming to the table, and it was really a chance to have some intimate conversations about what were our fears in the industry, what was coming down that we needed to be aware of as business owners, what did we want to be doing in terms of trying to drive the future of our industry. And so a couple years ago, we had some great conversations. I think we maybe tackled a little bit too much at that time, so we decided to streamline and hone it on one specific topic as we move forward. And we got such great content out of that first one that ILEA really tried to get behind this and said, this is something we need to try to be doing every year. So we kind of relaunched it this year in Denver, or sorry, last year in Denver at ILEA Live, and we'll have the next one coming up in Minneapolis.
I'm always fascinated just when you guys look at your papers, because I've never actually been able to go to one. And I've heard of ILEA for years. So I've been an MPI member, PCMA, coming in for all of this. But it was fascinating to me as somebody who works in the industry, but also owns my own agency. And so this sense of like establishing value around who we are as planners and the different types of entry point and all the different ways. Tell me a little bit more about how you think you're envisioning the future of the events and what it means to really think about being a producer of live events and the concepts that you might have had come out of the last forum that you might be able to explore more later on. Let's do Kevin, since I don't know who actually led the conversation. So I'm just like pointing at the first top.
That one. Okay. So, you know, the one of the interesting things that I found and it wasn't a shock, but always finding out the depth of how pervasive this was it becomes a very, very difficult thing to easily pronounce our value to others, to the purchasers of our services. Now, some of our services, even within our industry, we had these discussions of what are the services that we're providing. Some people are just literally logistics or to-do list. Some people are strategists. Some people have a creative value. And some people pull out all together. And so there was a lot of issues with what do we present to outward facing as an industry to say, this is why we are something that should be valued highly, valued correctly. And I think that when we said to ourselves, there is almost no consistency amongst how we look at ourselves, how we describe different positions in our industry, how we present the value proposition in proposals. I could tell you that easily 80%, 70%, 80% of people will do value on time. And that's if they even do time. Most people will do by product, which is even more of a commodity than time. So they'll charge by centerpiece and they'll charge by an AV setup. And when you start to do that, everything becomes individual units of what a client is seeing, and then they try and price that unit down. And so for us, the idea is what is the value that we can provide, and then sell based on that value to that client in individual circumstances. And I think it was such a big part of our conversation. It really was, because so many people said, could you tell the value? And could you do it consistently across everybody in the room? Absolutely not. Just a complete fail on that one. And that's then our issue as an industry, I think.
And Kristen, do you think that, because I think that you were saying you've got experience both internally and externally because you own your own, but you've worked in-house as a planner, if I'm understanding your background or if I'm off on that one. Because I would think that it's almost different, the return on investment when we talk about equating value across the board. Someone who is doing logistics for a large corporation, or maybe Sara, you're a better one to speak to this, versus someone who's owning their own or out there putting teams in. Like, are we trying to establish a baseline to help people who are purchasing our services or even the consumers that are taking the services? Are we trying to help them better understand it so they can get out of it and establish it? Or are we saying, no, by making this investment as an event planner, you are embarking on a career that's going to bring you more than just recognition from the greatness of a live stage? I feel like that's not a very good question.
I think sometimes it's good if you just see the opposite of the clients. So sometimes you have to, it's also for clients sometimes easy, not so easy to understand what we are doing. And I think for everyone, it's also necessary to ask yourself, what is really the added value of your service? So because especially in nowadays, through digitalization, through the internet, many services you can purchase online. And therefore you have to find the right answer, why you are better maybe than your competitor. And I think even though when I started my business, so there was only one idea, okay, I want to organize events. But in nowadays also we have this kind of strategy meetings now every 1 to 2 years to ask ourselves, are we still on the track? Are we still delivering this added values? How to differentiate to others, and I think this is things where an organization like ILEA could also help, and also the Global Event Forum can help, because this was really, for me personally, the most interesting thing to discuss these topics with my colleagues all over the world, and we are facing all the same challenges, let's say, and I think the Global Event Forum was a good starting point for that, to define this kind of answers.
And I think, just to build on that, I think one of the things about the Global Event Forum that was unique is it doesn't matter if you're in-house running your own small business, huge conglomerate. We're all facing some of these same challenges, but we're speaking about them in different ways. So for one company, they think it's just about valuing creativity. For me, it might be valuing the intangible coordination that it takes to manage logistics that you can commoditize. There's still all of that work that gets done, all of that professionalism that's required. And so I think the Global Event Forum is really that chance to say, let's take a look at the underlying root of some of these issues that we're all experiencing in our own ways and figure out what the big piece of that nut is that we as ILEA or anybody else can try to crack if we all come together.
You guys rolled right into what I was wondering, which is, spanning across multiple countries, are the challenges that we face more similar than they are different? Are they more different than they are similar? But it sounds like you guys found a lot of common ground based on some of the discussions that came out of that. Were there anything that was kind of surprising when it came to kind of the international feel of things that like, oh, wow, that's the way you guys do things? That's not the way we do things here. Was there anything that stuck out to any of you that seemed dramatically different when you started getting into the nitty-gritty?
Yep. Keri here.
Yeah.
I think that we discovered that probably the United States and Canada are very similar in probably the life of the industry, but that Australia and Europe were actually way farther ahead than we were in regards to standardizing the system, standardizing government regulations and how they operate. And even the barriers to entry were completely different in Europe than we're finding here. So we were having those conversations about simple things that they've actually found some great solutions to, that we all know that we need to go to them to find those easy solutions instead of trying to just be a hamster on the wheel and do it ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry to interrupt. So I think this was really interesting, and we could exchange a lot of things. And I think therefore we should use, for example, this kind of conversations, like here on the podcast, but also like in meetings like ILEA Live or whatever. And That's also, I often receive some questions also from other ILEA members, and yeah, sometimes we can answer. The answers might be really easy and simple because we solve these problems or these challenges maybe a little bit earlier, but nevertheless, it's always the same that also comes up new things, and therefore the kind of exchange, I think it's so important for us.
And to add to that, everyone looks out for, I think at one point we actually asked, we turned to everyone who is not from North America and said, all right, so tell us, how do you do this, or what do you think of this or this? But what would be even more powerful, I think, the next time around, depending upon topic, is to get to what I would consider lateral industries, things that aren't so far removed from what we do, but are different enough that we stop hearing the same answers or the same solutions, and we could hear something that we wouldn't normally get to hear and apply it. That's when I think innovative breakthrough happens, is when you see a different perspective on something, and it's your ability to see it and apply it that allows you to solve something in a better way, in a more efficient way, in a stronger way, a more effective way. And so I would really look forward to the next forums probably having, creative brethren that are related to us, so to speak. We started with, I think, marketing, architecture. It would be really good to see people like that and others in the room to talking to get to better solutions, because you have a broader audience, broader feedback.
Yeah, our president's actually a past publisher, comes from the publishing world, and he came back and said this is the same conversation that the publishing world was having 20 years ago, and it's interesting that we're now having it. We can learn from them. For sure.
I think a perfect example of that is retail. I mean, the retail world is changing, and we're in this experience economy that everybody's talking about. And I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn, a lot of best practices, a lot of, problem hacking that we could do together with our colleagues in that industry as well.
So I'm curious to know, because I think one of the interesting things that popped up from this is that the first half of it, I was very much like fly on the wall, just like listening what everyone had to say, because I was just like very much overwhelmed in the conversation that we're having. But one of the things I think that was interesting that ended up getting discussed as well is like the challenges of having a sort of forum, is that a lot of times you think like, oh yeah, you're going to put the smartest people in the events industry all in a room and like, let's see what comes out of it. What sort of challenge did you guys see arise from this forum in this sort of format of, a big group of people trying to solve an entire industry's problem all at once? I know that I saw that a lot, and Kevin's smiling real big, so I think he might have an idea for what I'm asking about.
Well, so to say solve it for the industry is almost impossible. First of all, so much of let's be frank, we did attempt to do that. We said, all right, can we solve commoditization? And then we said, okay, before we start commoditization, we have to solve A, B, and C, because it's our own internal problem, and our own internal problem started. And we tried to find the headwaters. We tried to go back up the river and find the source and say, where is all these issues happen? We ended up with 4 different breakouts where we were going to have just one room full of people talking. We had 4 different breakouts talking on different issues. But I think the challenge, I don't think it's a problem, but I think the challenge is getting the cascade going. I just watched a dominoes video. Don't ask me why. I was watching dominoes fall. And they always have this one trick of, the little domino, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, boom, 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 boom. The little domino is not going to change the whole industry. The room of 30 people isn't going to change the whole industry. But it has to start a cascade where you can get the next bigger organization to latch on and go, yes. And the energy behind that pushes the next one. And the energy behind that pushes the next one. Because there's writing on the wall, so to speak. I literally think I got an email that says for an app to plan your event. It was an app, plan your event, produce it. I mean, God bless, but really? Okay. So
Wait, so just to be clear, it was an app that would plan the event for you?
I just kind of chuckled and was like, I guess it pings you when you need to call your vendors, send check, pay your suppliers.
I just wanted to make sure I understood exactly what you were saying there.
So I think, there's a lot of shift that's going to happen. And I think it's, do you get buried by the shift, or do you embrace it and find the new rooms that are there? Because we are technologically phasing things out. And I think you're going to, Keri can probably attest to this. Christian can probably attest to this. Since Sara's so young, she probably can attest to this. But the notion of a Rolodex where, yeah, I know, Keri, I'm sorry. But let's just reality straight in the face. Let's just, embrace it. The Rolodex was the thing. Who you knew was 80% of the value of a client. Like, I don't know who to call. And that's gone. That's just gone just from search engine, right? I don't know who to call. Well, now you do know who to call. And so finding that space as a producer of live events is that next phase. It's you're going to have to constantly do it. And commoditization is going to happen for the people who don't do that. And it just becomes something you can Google-ify, to use a completely made up word.
What other sort of challenges did the rest of you guys see coming out of having this conversation that you hope that maybe for people who are like, well, maybe we should try to do something like this? Like, what do you think that the challenges that you kind of saw that we want to improve on for future years from this conversation?
I'll just say, I think it's figuring out what's a realistic size bite to take. So Kevin mentioned it, is you can't solve all the world's problems overnight, but you kind of have to start with that goal, that end goal in mind, and then work your way backwards to figure out maybe a couple of those smaller steps that you can take along the way. And I think you need to be uncomfortable not being in agreement, because, as Keri mentioned, when it came to things like government involvement in the events industry and that sort of thing, the room was split. Some people are like, hey, this is great, let's all kind of get on the same page. And some people are like, no, keep people out of our business, like, let's do our own thing. And there's some benefits to having a little bit of the Wild West. So I think you need to make sure that you're gathering people who are open-minded, collaborative, and willing to kind of make some small steps, but being uncomfortable knowing that you're not going to walk out of the room with all the answers right away.
I like that.
And especially, to spread out the message, to the world a little bit. So when ILEA organization maybe started talking only with North Americans and Canadians, for sure, and now we had also from Australia, and even though from Europe, and me from Germany, and just all the input and all the information we took also to our national event organizations. And I think this is also where we can support each other, because some topics, we are maybe some steps ahead, but also in some topics the Americans are much more ahead, and so on. This kind of exchange, and it's a starting point, let's say. And the more we talk about, the better it is, and the more, even though on client side they will recognize that we talk to each other, so that they see, oh, so our suppliers, are not so stupid anymore. So they talk to each other and see how to solve such problems maybe for the future. And even though through collaboration, how to get things even better done, and all those things what we are facing, how to be more efficient, how to be, to sell our value to our clients. I think this is the most important question what we have. And everyone is working in different sectors, but nevertheless, we have all the same challenges. And I think we should learn more from each other.
So in one of the reports, you brought up a really interesting point around data and those who will control it. And if we don't control our own data, ooh, Kevin's got a face, some company's going to come in and swoop in. And I think, looking at it from at least the event tech spot, we're already seeing kind of that fragmentation slowly circle in. Was there anything that you uncovered from a data perspective at the last forum, and kind of, are there ways that you're continuing that dialogue around data? Kevin, because you made the face, I want to call you out again.
I have to stop making faces. So we did talk about data, and I think that there are very smart companies, some who recently just got bought out for billions of dollars, who have been collecting data. Data is the new energy, which was the new gold. Data is the mine. It's the the top companies now all deal in data. They don't deal in anything else. And people have realized we can just go into places and just be the ones. I had a boss once who always used to say, stand by the kitchen door when the caterer comes out. You can always grab an hors d'oeuvre right off the tray if you stand right by the kitchen. You'll never go hungry if you're right by the kitchen. The people who are right at the source of data, right as it comes out, right as it gets fed in, the people who are taking that and scooping it up get to resell it and repackage it. And there are companies in the event industry who are doing that. They're doing that big time. And that's why they get billion-dollar valuations. But I don't think people are thinking about it enough. In fact, the Europeans with their their data privacy laws is the first time where somebody said, what are we actually even doing with data in this industry? It didn't come from the Americans because we don't care at all. We are the nudists in terms of giving away data. We just expose ourselves wholeheartedly. And so I think we're only just now going to come to terms with the fact that someone's going to control everything. And there's 2 or 3 companies in our world that are there right now. So we don't know enough about what the impact is going to be, but I know that our economy is based on data right now, and just look at who controls it and who's collecting it. And we're going to have to be guardians of data as well, as the Europeans have now let us know that you have to be incredibly careful with this, because that's going to be the next reckoning. Something really bad's going to happen with data. Maybe not, guys. I mean, entire credit companies have given away 100 million passwords and social security numbers, and people are still giving. Just laziness. Here, take all of my information. Just let me have one password. Maybe we'll never learn our lesson on data, but I think a day of reckoning will be coming soon. And the event industry is a great collector of data, more than we know we do.
Definitely. And in Germany, and especially in Europe, we have special data protection laws. And if you do not handle it very well, then you can be sued, and you have to give up 4% of your annual turnover as a fee for that if you do not respect this. And I think the most important thing for us, or even though for each event company, or even though other companies, it costs a lot of money to get solved these kind of regulations. So for our company, for example, we spent over 20,000 euros to get this kind of security measures and things to protect the data. And if you see how Google or other things collect data, so sometimes we in Germany thought, why do we have to pay all this kind of things if other companies like Facebook and co, do it without any kind of, it seems so, no data protection, so it's so easy. And I think this is the next thing maybe which may come up. So all these investments for all of our companies, it's not to underestimate. So because I think smaller companies, they still are not 100% prepared for this kind of regulation. And if you do it honestly, then as said, you need the resources and you need the money for that to get solved that.
I think there's also 2 parts to the data thing, and there's a who in data. Who are we selling to? Who are we trying to reach? Who do we have access to? And then there's a why. And I think in our industry, the why data is really important. Why do I need to invest in this campaign? Because if you do a live event and people buy your tennis shoes, they're going to have a larger brand affiliation to you and longer loyalty and everything else. And that's what I think in our events industry, you talk to a lot of people who live in the tech space like Nick Borelli or some others, and it's that, how do you talk about the return on the experience, not just the return on the investment? And that's a whole different data set that we're trying to wrap our heads around as an industry, and we're trying to understand. And so we had some interesting conversation around that as well.
Well, and we just want to remind everybody that we did an episode on cybersecurity 131, though, but we talked a lot about the kinds of data that we're responsible for as an industry. And I think sometimes when people start going down the road of cybersecurity, they think, oh, well, who cares if I get hacked or something like that? But we are the gatekeepers for some incredibly important data, when in our registration platforms and just although in our mobile apps. I mean, we're not doing a very good job of keeping our hands on that data and preventing people from getting access to it. So it's a enormous part of the discussion.
Brant, I mean, as well, and certainly Will, and being in the AV world, the amount of, let's not talk about personal data, let's talk about corporate data that we get our hands on. And I've had just some crazy realizations where I'm saying nobody has asked me to do anything with what's on these hard drives, and this information could wreck a company. And but that stuff sitting on somebody's computer could easily get pulled, yanked, brought to a black site and leveraged.
It's a ridiculous amount of information that we're privy to in our events. As we're starting to keep an eyeball on the time, I just want to kind of transition on a little bit from, so we talked about commoditization, we talked about data. What are some of the other big issues that you guys feel like our industry is dealing with right now? Kind of the big challenges that are facing with it. Sara, we haven't heard from you in a while. Is there anything that stuck out for you as far as the big challenges that were discussed?
I feel you've heard too much from me. I'm going to kick it over to Keri on this one to start.
All right.
But I do have a couple ideas, but I'm going to share after Keri on this.
As she runs to unmute.
Well, I was taking a breath because I thought Sara was going to take some time. So I wasn't even really, I was off in my own little world. You'll have to repeat the question.
No, that's fine. It's just the old pass off. It's the oldest trick in the book for panelists. Just, I've got some great answers to that, but first I want to hear what she's going to say.
I love it.
So I was actually wondering so we kind of talked about commoditization and we talked about big data. What are some of the other challenges that came out of the forum as far as challenges that are facing our industry?
Well, I think a big one that came up was, of course, barrier to entry, education, certifications, base level knowledge, how that filtered into billing enough, charging enough, not just finding the value in the different services that you can supply and what separates you from the next guy, but are you charging enough to actually make money? And that's me dinging and I can't figure out how to turn it off, so just ignore me. But are we actually starting with enough credential and education to create professionals that are starting businesses that understand how to run a business, an event business that will then be profitable? Like, these people will do events and go in and they have no idea even how to make money at it and how to make a profit. It's the basics of business that they're not learning at the forefront as well. So barrier to entry, but barrier to entry as a business as well as just an individual. See, they're keep dinging me.
That's every time you say something brilliant, a ding goes off.
My team's just talking about my hair. That's all.
We love you guys. Well, I'm curious to know too, like what are the topics for next year going to look like? Sara started teasing next year, and I already started getting excited. I'm like, ooh, gotta get excited for next year. What sort of topics? Well, because Sara probably has an idea better than maybe we do. What topics do you think that we should be talking about next year, Christian? Like, what do you think that we didn't get to that you would love that the Global Event Forum should address in 2019?
I think, the topic education, I think, is good, because especially here in Europe, we have the problem, we call it the war of talents. So how to get the right people, because everyone, sees on the newspapers, on the TV or from Instagram that, what's fancy to be an event planner, but it's even more to be, standing on the red carpet, have a glass of champagne and see Brangelina say, hello, how are you? So I think this is a different. And there we should also focus what we can learn from each other, and to see what's really behind this kind of different job profiles which we offer. And so it's not a fun thing or a party thing, because it's really an important it's a big industry. And I think therefore we have how to change the mindset from some people. Oh, it's a fun job. It's really something important which the industry really needs.
I love that. Yeah, like how do we allow people to take us more seriously?
More seriously.
I love it. I love it, Kevin.
Well, I was going to say, I just was speaking with an associate dean at a school of hospitality, and so the world of hotels and hotel management and the finances behind it, and they run it as a business, and they see it as an industry, and it's established and it's old and it's got great economics behind it and good theory, but we are. This notion of human experience is extremely limited in formal education, and the people who usually walk away with the most respect, right? We tend to lump them into certain things that require an insane amount of education, and it's the doctors and lawyers and things like that. And somebody once said, well, the reason why you don't get enough respect is a lawyer always shows up in a suit, and you're never in a suit. Like, okay, maybe. But I think it's the mastery of a body of knowledge that it's the first level of respect that exists. And we don't have enough in the world of designing human experiences that is that. And it's a shame, because there's so much science out there on how humans behave and the choices we make and our psychology and what have you. And the fact that we are not teaching that or implementing that, or better yet, creating the barrier. I mean, we have to create a barrier if we want there to be a barrier to entry. There has to be a formal group that says, this is why doctors and lawyers can charge so much, is there is a formal barrier to entry, and they say, this is what you should be charging. And let's not lessen the amount.
Channeling Aaron Kaufman in that.
But that's what they did, and they did it from an early spot. But even those aren't infallible. LegalZoom.com. I mean, there you go. Lawyers, sorry.
And I think this is another one where I think there's two parts to the conversation, because there's professionalism in producing the event, like the logistics of it, but like an artist, somebody who designs the experience, like Van Gogh or anybody else, they may have studied all they wanted, but unless they had this creative stroke of genius that separated them from some of their peers, they wouldn't be on their platform. So I think in ways we need education, and we need formalized barriers to entry in terms of professionalism, but we also need to create an environment that allows for this creative stroke to operate outside of the lines, so that we get the best of both worlds. We get professionalism and we get creativity, and then it comes together in this amazing, unique space that the events industry occupies. Kevin, you just mentioned a university board, and it's actually interesting. I'm on the board for a university out here in California, and they just changed from what used to be rec, park, and tourism, went to hospitality, and now it's experience industry management. And they are offering completely different curriculum that includes psychology and business management. And
what's the school?
Cal Poly. Go Mustangs. I didn't get in there. Both my sisters went. I got dropped, but whatever. I'm not holding a grudge. So, but anyways, they're doing amazing things, and they're actually starting an experience industry lab where they're getting major companies to put in millions of dollars so that you can beta test your experience on people before you even build it out live. So I think there's some really interesting things happening, and I think we as an industry need to take advantage of the academic opportunity that's out there, because people are paying attention to us now. So I don't want us to lose that opportunity.
Preach. Keri, you got anything you want to add? She's shaking her head. No, thank you. All right, guys. So we're getting towards the end of the episode. So I think it's time for us to ask our traditional last two questions. As much as I know that we're going to be able to talk about the Global Event Forum all day long, I know this next year coming up, we'll have more to even talk about as well. So I have a feeling a follow-up episode will be needed. And as a reminder, real quick, if you are enjoying this conversation, you want to talk more about like how to make the industry not commoditized, we're doing an episode again in like 2 or 3 episodes. I hear Kevin White's going to be there. So we'll be talking about that topic in depth about how we can avoid it. Is it too late? All that jazz. But before we get there, let's get to our last 2 questions that we have. So starting with, what is your one tip for event planners? So everyone who is out there listening, planning their own events, what's the one tip that you have for everybody? Keri?
Oh, you made me think about this before and I couldn't come up with one. First of all, I'd prefer that my one tip start with don't call yourself a planner. That's a good tip. And for me as a mother and a wife and somebody that's been in the industry for almost 20 years, rally the best group of people you can around you, join associations, find friends, and get support to ensure that you can do this job with the best work-life balance you possibly can. And be the best in the world that you can be, not just as a event professional.
I love it. I love it. Think about the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
Christian, what would be your one tip for event planners or event
Still
professionals?
thinking about the work-life balance. So what did I wrong? Yeah, we should talk later about that.
I love it.
Maybe you can give me some tips.
I love it.
But honestly, what you said, and I think this was for me, the thing what helped me to get more professional, let's say, really to find people from out of the industry, talk to them and exchange, because they have also the same challenges, problems. If it's with your team, if it's with clients, if it's about creativity or whatever. And I think therefore also organizations like ILEA or even others, can also help. And you have always to be active, because only paying, let's say, a membership fee without showing up to any event, I think this doesn't help you. So the better, the more you are active, the more you're interested to find other people to talk to them. I think this is the most important thing about that, especially for beginners, if you start in this business.
I love it. Awesome. All right, Sara, you look really excited. What's your one tip?
I don't know about excited. It's, I think, a little bit of everything that has been mentioned, but I think if I could go back, I would have had like a CRM for all of my own personal contacts, because in our industry, you never know what you need and who you need to tap into. And if I could like go back and turn that Rolodex, I do know what it is, Kevin White, into a like digital platform where I had key tags for all of my people. So if I needed somebody in sustainability in Arizona, I could just very quickly go through it. I think I would have started building that from day one. Because the more I'm in this industry, the more I realize it's about reaching out to people, but they're not all people in this industry, and you never know where you're going to pull them together. So that would be my piece of advice.
I love it. Kevin, one tip?
If you don't know your own story, there's zero way you're going to be able to tell someone else's story. And that's, I think, what an experiential designer does in a way. You fill in the someone. It could be some organization, some city, some place, some couple, whatever it is. But start with, do you have an ability to tell your own and see an arc and have it be a story that somebody wants to grab onto? I hear a lot of repetition and a lot of echo chambers in this industry, in any industry, from resumes to marketing to, elevator pitches. And really, this is all about that separation, that ability to make someone see that story. If you can't tell your own story in a persuasive way, work on it until you can, and then go tell other people's stories.
I love it. Wow. So much good knowledge shared. All right, so now I get to my favorite question of all time. Your guys' favorite resources. So get your notebooks ready. If you're in the chat, we're going to post links to all of them. But what are you guys' favorite resources? Books, blogs, podcasts, other event icons, because we're the greatest podcast ever, that you guys love to enjoy. What are your favorite resources that you can't live without? Kevin, since you went last time, you're going to go first this time. What sort of resources are you living on every single day?
I try not to live on something every single day, only because then it makes me dependent on that item. And I also think that you get into the world of overload. But I like seeing the design process happen. So I like fast design. So Fast Company's design. I just went through about 7 different design websites this past weekend. And it's that tangential application. It's not somebody's designing furniture, not literally for your event, but why was that furniture design amazing? Being able to see stuff like that really. So I would say Fast Design is a great website for me. And I take it back. Wired magazine. I love Wired magazine, and not necessarily because of the tech, but because it tells you, it helps you understand humans from an entirely different perspective than events. Those would be the 2.
Sweet. All right. Sarah, what are your favorite resources?
So Fast Company is also at the top of my list, as is Inc. And then the other ones that I really like, How I Built This, the podcast, I think is one of those when you need to just kind of think about people who are taking a lofty idea and trying to figure it out and make it happen, and that entrepreneurial spirit. I think that one kind of speaks to me a little bit. And same thing with Kevin. It doesn't necessarily need to be in an industry that I'm working in, but if there's a lesson I can take out of it and apply it to my industry or my team, I think it's really valuable. So those are probably some of the top ones for me. And then the other thing is also something that feeds your passion. I'm really passionate about athletics. So I actually get a lot of my inspiration from like player blogs and other things that I can then turn around and say, okay, people are following these people. How is that a brand or a story or anything else that I can tell and start doing some of their work? So it comes from everywhere.
Sweet. Wow, we're like magazine heavy. You guys are rocking it right now. Keri, do you have any favorite magazines, books, blogs, resources, apps?
Well, I'm pulling out Fast Company as well. They're doing well. Love it. I love rereading travel magazines. So when I'm on flights, I pull out my WestJet or my Encore, any of those. Love the stories because I'm a past traveler. I use my children a lot as a gauge of what direction I should be going, which direction I shouldn't be going. They're clever. They see the world in a completely different way. And if you can get into their mindset just a little bit, then you can pull out of that some really good juice. And I like to call my eyes a little bit of an app. And I don't think that we're doing that enough, that the world's the best place to see how people are interacting together with product in space. And the more that we actually watch humans interact together and as humans, the better experienced designer you're going to be. IDEO, love IDEO, and C2, love their stuff too.
Amazing. By the way, if you guys aren't watching this live, I'm posting these all in the chat. So feel free to post your favorite resources as well as we go along. Christian, last but not least, what are your favorite resources?
Yeah, for sure. From now on, EventIcons, I think every Wednesday now, 5 p.m. Eastern time. So my account number where to send the money. No, joking. But nevertheless, it really was good to be part of it. And for sure, what I'm looking around, there are a lot of awards in the world, So in Germany, we have the ADC award, we have the BrandX award. In the US, we have awards. In the Baltic states, there's an award show. And they have a lot of good online presence where you can see the all entries. Some awards shows also the videos. If you go best of events or Brand X award, if you just Google this kind of awards, you get a lot of inspiration. So what other countries and other companies do, which industries, how solve they, what kind of things they won a prize. I think this is for me very inspirational. And otherwise, also for some keywords, I use Google Alert, you know, if you see something, a topic which interests me, so that I get automatically some updates where I always see nice, interesting articles. So that's how I do that.
Very nice. I think we got everybody, right? Did everybody get a chance to? All right, excellent. Well, I think that's time to start wrapping things up. Christian, since you were just talking, why don't you tell us a little bit more? Thank you so much for joining us, and tell us a little bit, if people want to contact you or find out more about what you're up to, where can they do that?
For sure, if you're a member of ILEA, for example, you'll just to Google President ILEA Europe. That is one thing. On the other hand, you know, it's www.joke-event.de, so my company website. And if you just Google Christian Seidenstuecker and on LinkedIn and Xing and other things, very easy. I'm happy to hear from you.
Excellent, excellent. And let's go up to Keri. Keri, where can people find out more about what you're up to?
Well, we've got our website for the company, emc2events.com. You can find us on there. You can message me on my personal Facebook, which should be somewhere in one of the links or one of the things. And Keri at emc2events.com. Reach out. I won't get back to you for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, but contact me.
Wonderful. And thanks so much for joining us. Sara, how about you? Where can folks find out what you're up to?
Well, you can certainly get me through ILEA. I'm there and always engaged with our community there. My company website, sfgiants.com, obviously people will start hearing about us more when baseball season starting, and Giants Enterprises is our events arm of the business. And obviously you can reach out to me via email as well. Contact information is there.
Nice. Thanks for joining us. And Mr. Kevin White, where can people find out more about what you're up to these days?
Please don't contact me.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Anybody to bother me. So to get to our company, go to XPL, the number 2, xpl.com. And also just as facilitator, speaker, presenter, kevinwhitepresents.com. And, you know, I always pop up every once in a while in the ILEA forum, say something awful or dumb. And so feel free to reach out there as well. But yeah, you can get us through the website. So
you're always popping up somewhere. That's for sure.
Seriously.
All right. Thanks, man, for being here. Lindsay, Martin Bilbrey, this is the first time I've gotten to be on the show with you. So it's nice to have you starting to join us on a little bit more regular basis on EventIcons.
It's been fantastic to be here. Are you wanting my contact information too? Because we don't do that. I'm like Kevin. It's very top secret.
Of course. Yeah. Where can people follow you and find out what you're up to?
No. I mean, you guys can find us over at the event app company, pathable.com, or at Nifty Method for events and marketing. But I just want to say to our podcast guests, man, I have so many notes, like literally, guys, there's notes here, there's notes in my Google Doc. Thank you for sharing your knowledge today. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And the indisputable, undeniable Will Curran, Chief Einstein at Eventless Events. Thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you for having me. No, don't follow me either. Yeah.
All right. No. Don't follow him. You can't find any of his stuff.
You can't find out anything about me at all if you try to Google me.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, thanks again to everybody. We really appreciate you joining us on this blockbuster. We're like the Zoom frame can hardly hold us all in episode of EventIcons. EventIcons is recorded live each Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern at www.event-icons.com. It's available the following Tuesday on all of your favorite podcast apps, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, iTunes, however we get into your ear holes is where we're at and we want to be at. So let me know if there's a platform on there that we're not on and we can try and get ourselves there. The best place to watch us, though, is live at event-icons.com. That's where you can see the show notes. You can see all the resources shared. You can join in the chat right there. The chat's just all the resources that Will's been adding to the chat as we've been going along. There's been times I saw a whole bunch of people in there while following along. Martin dropped a fantastic question there right at the end that we just weren't going to have time to get into. But what I want everybody to do is to just think about what are the steps that we can have moving forward. You guys mentioned that we hear a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. So let's start thinking about what are the steps that we can move forward. Let's bring that conversation on to the Facebook page, onto the EventIcons LinkedIn page, or use the hashtag EventIcons on Twitter. While you're there, let us know. What do you think of the show? Tell us who you'd like to see on the show. Let us know what are the icons of the industry that you want to hear from here on EventIcons. So thank you so much for joining us this week and every week on EventIcons.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #EventIcons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway.
And join the social conversation. Sponsored by Little Bird Told Media.
Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.